I've got coffee and everything. I'm feeling all ready for the day.
That's great. Is this the first thing you're doing today?
God, no. I've filmed yoga. I've walked the dog. I've made some bread. I'm sure there was something else. I've had a shower.
You're a bastion of productivity, aren't you?
Oh, mate, I am like, the weekend means nothing to me. I'm like eat, sleep, repeat. I don't even know what that means. But I got up and I did some things.
I actually, I've just come out of a nap.
Have you?
I have. I made some bread this morning and then was reading in another language because you
can.
Well, I can very badly and very slowly, children's books, and then I felt all sleepy, and I still feel a little sleepy.
I like that you feel a little sleepy because it will be like this is almost an extension of your dream.
We could talk about things that we dream about.
Oh my God! Is there anything? The only thing more boring than listening to somebody's dreams is listening to somebody's problems. Which reminds me, I've been really struggling recently with...
Really? Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Oh, thanks so much.
Tell me more.
This is a podcast in which two friends have serious conversations about silly things and silly conversations about serious things.
I'm Simon Ellis.
And I'm Lee Miller.
Welcome to Midlifing. I was remembering the other day, in fact, it was a very specific memory. It was early July. I don't know precisely the date. Early July, 1983. And so this was the height of summer in the UK and, as you can imagine, that strange thing, the height of winter in New Zealand. And it was a special night, in fact, because it was the Wimbledon semi-final. I would have been 14 years old, and a New Zealander was playing in the Wimbledon semi-final.
Ooh, which one?
I don't know how many New Zealand tennis players you're aware of. Anyway, this one in particular...
I'm not aware of any tennis players at all.
This one in particular was called Chris Lewis. And Chris Lewis has made the semi-final of Wimbledon men's singles. And this was an extraordinary thing. And he was playing a South African, even better, whose name was Kevin Curran. And the game went on and on and on. And I was watching at a friend's place, a friend who I don't remember who he was, in the sense I don't remember his name. I don't remember why I was friends with him. Did we go to school together? Did we play tennis together? I don't remember. But we were up in the middle of the night watching Chris Lewis eventually beat Kevin Curran of South Africa. This was a big deal for a little place like New Zealand. Anyway, this is not the point of the story. The point of the story is that at some point in the evening, my friend brought out Penthouse magazines.
Oh.
And this was... what I remember is that he got them from his father's, the set of, what do you call the set of drawers next to your bed? Sideboard?
Table? Nightstand?
Nightstand. I never know the name of furniture, just as a slight tangent. I have to point and go the thing next to the... And
yeah, I'm with you there because I've heard people use the word credenza quite a lot in my life, and I've no clue what a credenza is. I wouldn't know it if it was to leap on me, and it might be able to because it could be a small animal, but people have them in their homes, so I don't think it's like a hamster. I think because I hear people say put it on the credenza, and I've never heard anybody say put it on the hamster. So I guess it must be a furniture item.
Except those people have pet hamsters and take them for a walk and have little collars, and they say, "Put the
collar."
Yeah,
then that would be
yes.
Put it on the hamster.
Put it on the hamster. Anyway, so again, this person whose father kept penthouses in his, let's call it his credenza.
He kept the magazine penthouse. He didn't keep like actual penthouses because that would be like another layer of complexity to put buildings inside furniture.
And nor did he keep hamsters in his cadenza. Scadenza is an Italian word.
What's it mean?
I think it means deadline.
I love that you know that. Sorry.
All our Italian listeners will be furiously saying, "No, it doesn't mean that, you fucking cretino."
Okay, so
anyway, and
credenza by the bed, and he's got his penthouse magazines.
Well, so I did anyway, and so my friend, and again, I don't remember. My friend brings them out, and I remember thinking, wait. So his dad, we were 14. His dad, let's say he was 40, maybe mid 40s. That's just a stab in the dark.
That's what his mum said. So sorry, I'll edit that out. Don't worry.
I mean, I know you should you could have saved that for at some point in this conversation, I'm sure. And the funny thing is, I mean, I don't have any other memory other than we must have looked at them. And that must have involved, inevitably, erections at some point, right? And I also remember thinking, ew, your father reads pornography. And there was something about... this is that weird thing about memory, which is I don't know whether I'm effectively time-travelling back the feeling, meaning, did I really feel a slight sense of shame? Or is it just me thinking about myself as a 14-year-old looking at... Actually, it might be some people who don't even know what Penthouse magazine is, right? But let's say it was Playboy Plus. That's how I thought of it in the day, right? Playboy was like light, soft porn, and Penthouse was a little bit harder.
Okay, there's a gap in my knowledge now. I don't know what Penthouse looks like, except I know it as a title. So I don't know it as a... My dad didn't have anything in his credenza on nightstand.
So, and it just the story got me thinking about pornography. And how...
I'm so glad you said that and not erections. Although, either way, because I thought that the next thing was like, so, you're 47.
Do you still get...
Do you still get them?
It's actually a conversation about prostates. I want to talk about prostates.
I've not had an exam.
Maybe
I'm guessing you have.
It's a funny story, that one.
About your prostate exam?
Well, no, my let's say desperation to have one. Because Dad died of prostate cancer, and so that means that I trigger all sorts of flags when it comes to prostate examinations. The first time I was at a doctor in Australia, actually. The thing about going to the doctor in Australia is it's just totally different from going to the doctor in the UK. For one, there isn't the sense that you've got 7 minutes and that you have to kind of rush through whatever the story is. So when you walk in, there's a sort of sense that, to see the doctor, there's a sort of sense that there's an exchange going on, and that this person has some time to consider, or even do a Google search for your problem. And also the waiting rooms are blissfully quiet and empty of people. So the first time it was around then, and it was when I talked about my history, and she said, well, it's probably, you can either have a manual examination and or what's called a PSA test. And I was a little bit taken aback because, well, I wasn't that keen to have this doctor put fingers up my ass. And so I said, well, what's the sort of time scale? And I said, well, okay, why don't I wait till I'm 50? So I'm going to turn 50 back in the UK. I went to the doctor, and this doctor was clearly not keen to give me a manual examination. No,
really?
It should be said in her defence, because she's clearly not here to defend herself, although she might make an excellent future guest.
People who haven't wanted to digitally insert themselves into Simon, an ongoing series.
Exactly. Because of course it's all sorts of it's. I was going to say it's messy. It's messy because when you are palpating one's prostate or someone else's prostate for that matter, like what's normal, like it's very, and what's hard or what's increased in size. There's no. It's very, very
Contextual?
hit and miss. I might be 99th percentile hard, big prostate. Exactly.
Yeah.
And then they start going, well, we should take a biopsy.
Ooh.
And then when you get a biopsy of a prostate, so they start basically putting holes in your prostate in order to see what's there, even if there's nothing there. So this is that thing which is really tricky. To prove something's not there is very, very difficult. Much easier to
Prove that there is. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's always easier to prove a positive than a negative.
Exactly. And so I have, to this point, avoided a manual examination of my prostate.
I had a moment about 2 weeks ago where I said to Bob, I think I need a prostate exam. And she said, why? And I said, because I'm getting up in the middle of the night.
She said, I'm so sorry, but I've just got to finish my breakfast.
Let me cut my nails and I'll be right back to you. I should put into context that for anybody who is still listening, and God, I hope they're not eating, that Bob is a qualified acupuncturist, which means that she's trained for red flags. So there are certain things that people will come and see her for that she's comfortable treating, but she has to ask a series of questions that will be to rule out red flags, things that might be more significant than the person who's presenting her with a series of concerns.
That would
be aware of.
Would you perhaps need to go to
a
normal doctor?
Yeah. But part of her training was to kind of like have a list of all the things that you should be worried about if somebody says stuff about. So she kind of knows more than the average person. She certainly knows more than me.
So someone's going to the toilet a lot during the night, for example, or yes,
exactly. And that's what I said to her. I said, I'm going to the toilet a lot during the night. And she said, well, what's a lot? And I said, well, I went twice last night. She went, And are there any other?
Twice. Sorry, you went to the toilet. You had to go to the toilet twice during the night.
This isn't always. This was on a specific occasion. A specific occasions of like it was like 3 times in a week. I had to go to the toilet twice in a night.
Wow.
For a week.
I mean, it's not funny, but wow.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, oh, okay. So I said to Bob, I think I might need a prostate exam. She said, let's just take a moment to reflect upon other lifestyle choices. What else have you been doing? I said, what do you mean? She said, well, I've noticed that you've had 3 glasses of water before bed, and that might be something to reflect upon when you're drinking your glasses of water. I said, but I was thirsty. She said, and where do you think the water goes when you've drunk it? I was like, yeah, okay.
I love that Bob, the beautiful Bob, would describe having a glass of water as a lifestyle choice.
I think the reflection was when I was deciding to down 3 big glasses of water just before bed. And the thing is, I stand at the fridge pouring glass after glass down my gullet, and Jeffrey the dog stands next to me drinking water from his bowl, and I'm saying, stop drinking water, otherwise you'll be up all night pissing. So I'm perfectly aware of how things work when I'm telling off a dog. But it would appear that I can't extend that same level of critical analysis to my own urinary processing.
Yeah.
So we're not talking about prostates or erections, but only tangentially about erections, because you were leading with pornography.
Well, I mean, this is kind of interesting, though. I mean, because there's that, there is that. I mean, I was having a conversation with the doctor just the other day, and the same conversation. And this time she said, well, you don't have to do it every year. So it's a little bit like the story had changed, meaning I don't need to get a PSA test. And the thing about a PSA test, of course, is that's a strange. You get a number back. And, of course, there's a number that's effectively normal for your age. But that number is going up all of the time, meaning as you get older, this number reveals about a particular level of whatever it is continuing to go up. And so what they're trying to say is, has it gone up a bit too much? Or has it gone up an amount we don't need to, or a value we don't need to worry about? And that's a pretty curious state of affairs because, of course, as you may or may not know, most men die with prostate cancer, not many from it.
Oh, that is fascinating. I did not know that most men die with prostate cancer.
That's it's exactly what happens. So
Wow.
your urinary faculties are going to diminish.
Yeah.
Sorry to say. It's funny though.
No, I think I knew that because so my dad complained to me recently about having to get up every night to go for a wee, and I was like, okay, let's unpack this because I need to know how much I have to be worried.
Did you ask him how many glasses of water he drank before he went to bed?
I didn't, but I asked him how many times he's getting up in the night. And he went, "Oh Jesus, once." I was like, "What? You're nearly 80 years old and you get up once a night for a piss?" He was like, "I know, it's fucking ridiculous, isn't it?" Like, ridiculous in what sense, Dad? He says like, "I've got to get up for a wee." I'm like,
Yeah.
"No. You're 80 years old. This is perfectly normal." Well, I don't think it's normal. I think it's stupid. I should be able to sleep right through.
Yeah.
Like a baby.
Like a baby. So do you think he's had a life reasonably free of stress?
I would actually say this is probably to do with how he has, because he was a butcher and he was standing on his feet for, between whatever it was, like six and six, maybe not quite that long, but he was on his feet for at least 10 hours, and he would basically he'd trained himself over his life not to pee, so he just has the kind of the
very strong bladder control.
He's got very strong bladder control, so it's like there's a bit of his brain that knows when it needs to wee that he's managed to just completely ignore. And so I remember he used to come home from work. And this is when I was very, very little, just to be super clear. And we used to wee in the bowl at the same time. And I really enjoyed weeing with my dad because his stream was just so incredibly impressive and like just really strong, and he made so many bubbles in the toilet, and it wasn't until I was much older that I was realising that that's because it was a full day's worth of pee that he was unloading, and I was standing next to him like doing my little 4-year-old trickle, going, "Oh, I just can't make as many bubbles as my dad." And so I'd be like, later when I was peeing by myself, I'd push really hard and I'd inevitably always fart because I was like trying to push my wee out to make it as bubbly as my dad's. So there you go. That's a memory that has just arrived fully formed from somewhere.
Sorry. I've now lost it. I think I have to take my jumper off again. Oh no, wait, I've got a zipper. That is so process. I was just thinking about stretch receptors actually, and because that lovely thing that in our bladder, for example, is that we know our bladders are full because the stretch receptors in the surface of the bladder start pinging. They start firing messages to our brain, which effectively say our bladder's full. And of course, you can train them. You can, like all kind of effectively neural receptors, you can adapt, and like pain receptors, you can learn to take pain, or they're called nociceptors. So I just love it that your dad just had this. He basically had a piss resisting practice all day, every day.
Yeah, absolutely for many decades.
Yeah, and now as an 80-year-old man, he's complaining about having to go once during the night.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got up twice just the other week, but then again, mitigating circumstances or micturating circumstances, if you want.
I don't know what that means.
Oh, that would have been a really funny joke. Micturation is another word for pissing, urination.
Wait, micturation.
Yeah, micturation. Google it.
That's cool though. That is really great. But I was hoping, I thought maybe we might talk about pornography. But we clearly have ended up talking about prostate. It just reminds me of something though.
Go on, please.
Was a friend who had prostate cancer, and he had it removed. And he was talking to his doctor, who said, you probably won't. It'll be a lot harder, if it might completely ruin your capacity to get erections. And he said, it's amazing. The doctor said, it's amazing how many men choose to not have their prostates removed, for this particular reason. And the doctor said to my friend, no point dying with an erection.
Yeah. That's really interesting that is offered as a narrative to a male patient, because a female patient won't have the same level of concern paid to her urinary and reproductive organs, because you know that the clitoris only has one function. It doesn't have multiple functions. It just is purely there for orgasm. Doesn't do anything else. And because it doesn't have any impact on men's lives, because
I'm trying to figure out how to circle back to Penthouse, but just nothing's coming to mind right now.
But because it has no impact on men's lives, it's been almost entirely ignored by medical science. So there's this incredibly complex, amazing organ that serves this incredibly, magical function, but is just completely ignored by medical science. And then you kind of go, okay, so in the landscape of, I can never say these words, obstetrics and gynecology, OBGYN stuff.
I was just so looking forward to just hearing you just keep going over and over and thinking, he's going to edit that out, isn't he, the motherfucker?
I'm just going to go straight to OBGYN stuff. In that landscape, those medical interventions that happen for women, there is no concern about what an episiotomy might do to sexual health later on. No, it don't matter. Let's just get the baby out.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. And yet the idea that a doctor would say, now, if we remove this, it might impact on your ability to have an erection. You kind of think, okay.
Well,
I also find it ridiculous that men would happily die.
Oh yeah, I mean
But interestingly, we haven't really left pornography, or at least there's something there about the primacy of the erection, and yet butt play is something that can have the potential for real pleasure for both sexes, and yet it's not something that heterosexual men are encouraged to explore or think about, and instead it's like, oh, that's gay stuff, and it's pushed away, or at least it is in public discourse. It might not be in people's bedrooms, but that's really interesting, that the idea that you might not be able to have an erection. Yeah, but you can still whack some up your arsehole, can't you? Although, admittedly, having your prostate removed means the thing that's going to give you pleasure, which is your prostate, has also gone. So I don't know what the relationship there between pleasure and bumholes are, because I'm not. I don't know how to finish that sentence. I'm not an aficionado.
I mean, aficionadism.
Is that an Italian word, aficionado? Let's go.
It does have a slightly Italian kind of ring.
Did you just say an Italian ring?
I didn't finish it.
Oh. Okay. Pornography.
I mean, it did occur to me that there was something so genteel and so kind of, I'm going to say last century, like an absurd comparison with the hyper-pornographied existence of 14-year-old adolescents these days. And
you've got a nephew, haven't you?
I do. Yeah, 16.
Is that a conversation you've had with him?
No.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because I've got, I guess, a godson. Although nothing he introduces me as his godfather. Yeah, I don't know where he's picked the word up from, because I'm not, but that's how he introduces me when we meet his friends and stuff. But I'm really aware that that's a conversation that's looming on the horizon. But yeah, so you've never had that conversation with him about the prevalence of porn. To be,
I don't think it's because it's not so much that I don't want it. It's not that I'm trying to avoid it. Mostly with my nephew, where it's 5:45 a.m. and we're at a football field playing football. Very odd time, right foot's looking really good there, boy. Yep, that's great. Hey, have you thought about it?
Except for a 16-year-old, they're all only ever like 3 seconds away from thinking about sex, aren't they?
Oh, you forget, don't you? I remember my last year at high school, our football coach, and we were at the national tournament. I remember our coach, who was not a teacher at the high school, he was someone called in. He'd brought pornography for us to watch together.
No!
Yes!
No!
Outrageous. And I never told my parents. My parents they would have lost it. I mean, he would have been gone. I mean, gone. So clearly no one, well, that I'm aware of, no one said anything. But I just remember going, why am I watching this pornography with a group of boys? It just seems so weird. It was so weird. And then every now and again, someone would yell out, "Lumberjack."
Right. So okay. So that's really interesting because that kind of opens up a couple of like roots there. As one is the kind of that thing that happened. I don't know if it still happens, but that thing that happened about the relationship between adult sexuality and nascent sexuality, and the kind of, I guess, in its darkest moments, become grooming.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, there are questions there about what did he want to happen there? Did he want you all to? What did he? Well, let's just leave it with that. What did he want to happen there? Oh. Because if you put on your kindest hat, he thought that this was a treat, but he also is a grown-up, so he knows that pornography is designed to cause arousal. You don't just usually sit there thinking, well, this is a delightful feeling.
That's true.
Do you? It's
true.
Not like, oh, good, this was the purpose.
Yes, the middle is not the point. The end is the point.
Exactly. So he knows that as a grown-up. So there is something for me there in terms of what he was doing. What's the intention? What's the thing that's behind it? And then there's, because that opens up all kinds of questions there about toxicity of masculinity and the narratives that are kind of perpetuated from one generation to the next generation. And even if he wasn't being predatory, he was doing something there about objectification.
And passing on a particular
absolutely.
way. Totally. I mean, at the very least, he was doing that. This is how we behave.
And what I want to do now is I also want to move this away from shame, because a group of 14-year-olds, and by group I mean like 3 or 4 on a sleepover, reading a magazine and all having a wank, whether they're doing it by themselves, as in, hand on their own stuff or hand on their friends' stuff, I think there has to be a level of, a safe level of exploration of your sexuality to work out what you like and what you don't like. And sometimes that can be done with
others, sure.
I was going to say with witnesses, because we have so many narratives of shame, or at least when we were kids, we had so many narratives of shame around masturbation. The idea that there were other people who were engaged in that at the same time is quite, I think, beneficial in terms of how it can unpick and unsettle some questions of shame. So I just want to be really clear that I'm not saying that, the exploration of stuff in kind of nascent sexuality is
somehow bad.
Yeah, because I don't. I think it's great.
But it's also weird. I find weird that clearly this conversation is not about pornography, but it's touched on it lightly. It's really interesting that we then got to darker aspects. But yeah, it's strange that, and in fact, I feel like this is a more interesting conversation that we've gone to. Wow, those things went on.
To go back to that 14-year-old you in that room and experiencing that, like, oh, what am I supposed to do with this? To give you a kind of a correlate. I was watching a horror film because I was a spooky little kid. I still am a spooky big kid. I like watching horror films. I think they're good. But in the 80s, horror films were exploitative. You would always have teen girls, always played by 30-year-old women, but teen girls having their tops ripped off by killers, or having their tops taken off by their boyfriends and then they were killed, or whatever. Yeah. And I remember watching a video with my friend, whose name I can totally remember, but I'm not going to say it because I don't want to paint him in a bad light. But nevertheless, we were watching this video, and this demon ripped off a girl's top, and her boobs popped out of her top. Obviously, that would happen when a demon rips your top off. And we were laughing and then rewinding it and playing it back, and we must have rewound it like 6.
You made an animated GIF.
In the days before animated GIFs, we did that. We just kept rewinding and laughing and laughing and laughing until there was a point at which my friend went, "Ah, shit." It's like, what? And he'd come in his pants.
Oh.
Because the kind of the eroticism of it was kind of overwhelming. And I just think about how deeply innocent that was in terms of two friends messing about, but nevertheless the kind of the erotic charge of it. And thinking, I can't imagine 14-year-olds watching boobs pop out of a shirt that a demon's ripping off now, and that being enough.
Innocence. It's such a It's. I mean, that's
I know
my.
that's a really sorry.
No,
I
no.
know that's a problematic word to have used, because I think those are a very, very rosy pair of spectacles that I'm putting on.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think it's not a word that came to mind when I was thinking about this. Time from when I was 14. But there's certainly a sense of wow, the kind of innocence of that moment for sure. Even though clearly at the time I thought I was much more sophisticated than I probably was. It's funny, all we're going to do is find out a whole lot of things we can't talk about.
It's interesting because I guess conversations are rarely, you rarely have to think about them in relationship to holding yourself to account.
Oh, it's so strange. It's so true.
Yeah. I wonder if that's why so many podcasts are about something, like people talking about
Technology.
last week's episode. Yeah, exactly. Or last week's episode of The Mandalorian, by the way. Thank you.
Are there podcasts already for that? I guess there are. Of course there are.
Oh, there's loads.
Yeah,
I mean, loads. We could do one for The Mandalorian and probably pick up, like, loads of listeners, because I think that's the kind of thing that people like gravitate towards.
Hashtag Baby Yoda.
Hashtag naughty Baby Yoda eating.
Oh, I haven't.
eggs
Oh
that
no!
you
Stop!
shouldn't.